empowering the blind to be excellent, do more, and live with greater success. This show is for you and about you. Welcome to the Delivering Access Podcast. All right, well, welcome to the next episode of the Delivering Access Podcast. I've been getting a lot of emails asking, who are you? Who's the guy who's doing the interviews? We don't know you. So who am I? I am Vashon Jones. I'm the managing partner for Fedora Outlier LLC, a consulting, teaching, and management firm that provides top-down, better than excellent consulting, teaching, and support on all of Apple's assistive technology, that would be. And we have on the show today, because the show isn't not about me or about Fedora Outlier, it's about our spotlighted hero. So today we have Mr. Mike Malarsie. Mike, are you prepared to empower?
Yes, I am.
Great, man. So what we're going to do is ask you a few questions. We want to get to know you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grow up, how you became blind, and what tools you used along your journey.
All right. So I grew up in New Mexico, just south of Albuquerque. Pretty small town, really nothing at all going on there, which was why I, from the time I was really little, knew that I was going to end up in the military. I was always fascinated by it, loved it, and that was what I wanted to do. I graduated from high school, went to one semester of college, and that made up my mind for sure. I was done sitting in a classroom and I wanted to get out. I was always really active and was, my parents were stressing about me constantly because I was always outside and it was sort of the crazy kid. People's kids would come over to play with me and they would always worry if someone was going to get hurt because I was adventurous. I loved that kind of stuff. So okay. I started looking into all these jobs in the military and trying to figure out what I want to do. And I don't want to sit behind a desk. My dad works for the FAA. He wants me to be a pilot. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be in the action. So I found a job called TACP, Tactical Air Control Party. And it's in the Air Force. And basically, to sum up what a TACP does is they call in airstrikes for the Army on the front lines. So you basically, you're a member of the Air Force. You live with Army guys, and you get to go and run around downrange with the Army guys. So you kind of get the perks of both sides of life because the Air Force takes better care of their folks, but the Army does more exciting things. So that sounded like an awesome fit. So I joined in May 2007 and got to do all sorts of awesome stuff. Airborne school, air assault school, everything that I was dreaming about. And December of 2009, deployed to Afghanistan, was there just shy of a month, just actually having the time of my life. Me and a teammate of mine, they embedded us as a two-man team with the infantry from Fort Carson, Colorado. January 3rd, 2010, we were on a foot patrol, 13 of us, going into a little small town there in Afghanistan, and we got ambushed going into this town, crossing a bridge. There was 2 IEDs, lots of small arms fire. When the first IED went off, it killed 2 of the soldiers that we were supporting, hit me in my face and neck, and from the minute that bomb hit me, the shrapnel completely destroyed my left eye and tore the retina on the right. And then I had severe shrapnel damage to my face and neck. It actually threw me off that bridge into the water, blew up my left eardrum, lots of skull fractures, traumatic brain injury, the whole 9 yards. It was a mess. Wow. I remember bits and pieces of what happened during the firefight. I remember the first thing I remember hearing was a lot of gunfire, and I was really confused as to what was going on. But the medic pulled me out of that water, patched up a 3-inch long scar on the right side of my neck. And as this is all going on, my teammate, Brad, was calling back to Kandahar saying, hey, we need air support now. We're in trouble. Because I guess as soon as that first bomb went off, insurgents, whatever you want to call them, kind of popped up in this village to there was orchards to our right and then the mountain to our left. They popped up on all 3 sides and we started taking fire. So he's calling Kandahar saying, we need air support. And as the A-10s were flying to us, it was only about 5 minutes, he and the medic decided to go forward into this town under enemy fire to retrieve the body of the soldier who stepped on the first IED. The blast threw him forward into the town. So they went in, retrieved his body, and brought him back out. And as they were taking him to a casualty collection point, a second IED was remotely detonated and killed both of them. All said and done, out of a 13-man patrol, we lost 4, had a total of 6 wounded. My teammate Brad was awarded the Silver Star about a year ago for what he did. So I wake up a week and a half or so later in Walter Reed in Washington, D.C. with really kind of not a very good idea what just happened. The very first clear memory that I've got is the doctor kneeling down in front of me and telling me that I was going to be totally blind and that there was nothing they could do to save my vision. Now, my jaw was wired shut, so I had to write everything on a clipboard. And, I grabbed my pen and just said, well, I thank you for trying your best. And I didn't really know what else to say. What else do you say? If somebody's saying, hey, we did everything that we can to help you, I wasn't going to be mad at him because he couldn't fix it. That's life. So, right. I said thanks to him. And then the very next thing was my dad telling me about Brad, about the rest of the guys. And as soon as I learned that, I kind of sat back in my chair and said, you know what, being blind is not going to stop me from being successful and moving on with my life. I turned from that minute, I turned my future into a tribute to those 4 guys. And I've got a little metal brace on my right wrist with their names on it when they were killed that I've worn every single day since. And I've turned my life into a tribute to them, to let blindness beat me, to get on with life. And a couple weeks into this, I had a couple folks from the NFB come in my room and were showing me their phones that talk and all this cool stuff. And I'm like, how do I get that? That is so cool. I had no idea. I had no idea what kind of technology was available for blind people. Mm-hmm. This is my first experience with it at all.
Right. So was that talks or mobile speak or voiceover or a combination of the 3 or what?
It was a KNFB reader. It was the Nokia N82, and I wanted it just because I was stuck in this hospital for a month, right. And I was feeling neglected. But fast forward to now, and I've progressed in my opinion well beyond the N82. Mm-hmm. I have an iPhone 5, the iPad Mini, an iMac, the new MacBook Air. My wife's got a Mac now. I've converted my whole family to Apple technology just because I have completely fallen in love. So, right. Technology is now my thing. That's what I do. I love it.
And that's what I was about to ask. You said now your thing. So it seems like you led a very adventurous life, starting as a kid and then going into the Army or the military to be all you could be and travel the world and conquer the world. And then you go blind. But were you a self-professed geek prior to that, or did becoming blind turn you into this technology, geek?
As far as I used to play a lot of video games, that was about as geeky as I got. I never really tinkered much internally with computers and did anything like that. I was either playing video games or was outside doing something else. That was about it. But once I became blind, that was when I really got involved because the VA originally gave me a PC with Windows XP, I think it was, on it. And it was all right. And I heard people talking about a Mac and all this good stuff. And finally, I picked up an iPhone and had that for about a year or so. And finally, I said, you know what, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get one. I'm just going to see. So I went and bought one and used it for about 2 days and was frustrated and confused. And I actually stuck it back under my couch. Right. And it sat down there for about 2 weeks until my PC got a virus on it and completely broke down on me. So it kind of forced me to get it back out. And at first I was kind of bothered. I was like, I'm confused. I don't want to do this. It's too hard. I didn't know of any resources at the time to learn how to do anything. So I just had to finally just suck it up and figure it out. Mm-hmm. Started watching YouTube videos, none of which were made for blind people. They were from a sighted perspective. But I would watch a YouTube video on something and then try to figure it out from a blind standpoint. And it took me about 2 or 3 weeks before I was in love with that computer. And from that point on, I was digging into everything that I could get into, learning every aspect of it, just because I was totally excited. And yeah, for the first time, I was having a ball actually digging into the computer and how things work and just messing with stuff, and I've loved it ever since.
Yeah. So everybody has that aha moment when it comes to assistive technology where they kind of grasp it. And a little bit about my story with that, I actually purchased JAWS 5, I think it was, a year prior to actually using it. And I remember using Zoom text and going through the whole denial of I can still see and blowing things up, one letter on the screen at a time. And one day I just went down to my office, opened up the Freedom Scientific box, and I'm feeling this Braille. Didn't know anything about Braille, knew it was Braille because it was a bunch of dots on paper, a bunch of CDs and some tapes. And at that time I'm thinking tapes. I mean, really? Tapes? No thumb drive, I can understand the CDs, so I just pop in, CD 1 and it's, logically laid out and it installs and it, does its clucking sound and boom, I got access. And I'm like, wow, the desktop is, because I could see prior, so I knew what the desktop looked like. I knew what folders could do. I just wanted to translate what I knew in the sighted world to how do I do the same thing in the blind world. So, it's interesting that you ran through kind of some of the same things with your assistive technology and then grasping it, once having to have went through something to bring you to the point to have to be forced to use it. So that's amazing. Right. Yeah. So I'm going to turn the interview around a little bit. Instead of talking about you, tell us, now that you are blind and you've met people from the NFB and have been kind of indoctrinated into the blindness community, what's your passion for the blind and the future of the blind?
My passion is really, it's simple. It's just about living a fulfilled life. It's not necessarily going back to work. It's not necessarily school. There's really not one specific fit-all topic. It's about happiness, and it's about giving people opportunities to expand, to grow, and to just enjoy life. Because like you said, I kind of had this thrust upon me, and I've learned about the issues that are affecting the blind community as I've gone on. It's only, 70% are unemployed. There's a lot of people, I keep hearing stories about people who hardly even leave their homes. And that's the kind of thing that I won't say drove me crazy, but I was like, there's no way these people know what they're missing. That there's so much out there, so many opportunities and resources and things for blind people that if these folks only knew, they could get out and take advantage of this, and I'm sure they would be so much happier. That's my big thing, empowerment, because there's no reason that we as blind people should sit at home not working. There are so many things to be doing, and whether it's working or not, there are plenty of opportunities to take advantage of, and all it takes is a little effort.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know every time I try to reach out to you, you're somewhere out of town traveling and still, for lack of a better phrase, seeing the world and still being adventurous. And going back to your military service, number one, thank you for that, for serving your country and help protecting us and keeping our liberties open to us. So we really appreciate that. And what's amazing is, through your adventurous attitude and wanting to get out there, you lost your sight and you took a different approach. Most people would, just sit in a basement and kind of be done with life. I can't see it, therefore I need not, interact with it. And you've taken a much different approach and still, are able to travel and see the world. Now, with not being able to see and in your travels, how do you have things related to you, a beautiful scenery, being on the beach if that's where you go, a nice, architecturally well-structured building, those types of things? How do you still enjoy those things not being able to see?
Most of the places that I've been to, I have at least seen in a picture.
Okay.
Not like Oregon. I've been to Oregon. I've been out into Connecticut. I can't even picture what all those trees look like. People have described it to me, and I can't wrap my mind around that. I'm from New Mexico. It's just wide open dirt. There's
There's some cottonwoods by the Rio Grande, but other than that, this bush is no higher than your knee.
Okay,
so other places, yeah, lots of cactus.
Okay.
So I go out to Connecticut, and they're telling me there's just trees everywhere, and I try to mentally picture that, and it just seems so weird to me. But we were just horseback riding in Idaho a couple of weeks ago, and we're going up the side of the mountain, and I was just listening to the silence of it all, and I get just as much enjoyment out of the sounds of life than I ever did as the sight of life. We were standing up on top of this mountain, just hearing nothing but the breeze and the horses, and I haven't been that happy in a long time. I was absolutely loving it. And of course, as we're going around, I'm asking people to describe everything to me, from buildings to other people that we're passing. Mm-hmm. And I'm always wondering, and my wife's great about that. She's always describing things everywhere we go anyway. I mean, just that, but I've learned that perspective and attitude they make up 90% of the day. And every day I wake up just being happy to be here and excited about whatever it is that's going on. And, it makes things so much better. And like I said, when I'm standing on top of that mountain, just happy to be alive, it just makes that moment so much better than it otherwise would be.
I can definitely picture that. So now that you become blind and you have this sense of empowerment and wanting others to feel what you're able to feel, in the sense of being able to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it, and not letting your blindness, visual impairment, disability, however it's labeled, stop you. You have a website. Tell us about that.
So I have a website, htb2.com. That's the number 2, and it stands for How to Be Blind. The way this all came about was it started off, it was because of the Mac, and because of the fact that there wasn't anything useful on YouTube for it. I started just one day after I'd had it for about 6 months. I want to start making videos and putting them on YouTube on how to do stuff with this computer, because it drove me absolutely crazy. So I'm sure there's going to be other people who are going to find this helpful. Right. So that's what I started doing. Started making YouTube videos, and it kind of started taking off. So then I said, well, you know what? I heard about this podcast thing. Maybe I should think about that. So I kind of did I looked into what it involved, and I was like, that sounds confusing. I don't know if I want to put that much work into this. Ended up making a blog for it, and started posting things on this blog and links to the videos, things like that. Now, this is all about a year after I got hurt, but I'm still in the military and going through medical evaluations and basically just sitting around and waiting and waiting and waiting. And it wasn't very long. It was maybe a month and a half before I was finally like, you know what, I'm doing the podcast. It'll make it easier. I can control it better. I can put it where I want it, things like that. So I started podcasting. Okay. And was originally using WordPress.com to do everything, because I didn't really know a whole lot. I was using the internal mic on my MacBook Pro at the time, and that was the beginning. And from there, it has escalated. And now, instead of using the internal mic, I've got a pretty fancy mic with a mixer, and the whole 9 yards, hooked up to an iMac now, where the website it's legit. And the podcast now, we just released, not very long ago, we released our 50th episode. And it grew from me just being boring on YouTube to now there's usually at least 4 or 5 different hosts, and we've got a lot of different topics that we cover. And this is everything from technology, and there are iOS and Mac tutorials, how to do things, but we also talk about whatever relevant stories are happening at the time in the blindness community. And we share personal stories. I talked about my trip to Idaho and opportunities that I've had. I share these experiences because, like I said, the whole point is to show people, look at how much you can still do. There's no reason to not take advantage of these opportunities. Like you had said, I've seen more of the country blind than ever in the 22 years prior to it. So many doors to me, and I know that I'm not the only one. And this podcast, starting off as just something to pass the time, turned into a hobby that I absolutely love now. It kept me sane over the last about year and a half, waiting for the military stuff to wrap up. And helping other people gave me an outlet, gave me a way to feel, I guess, accomplished. I feel like I was doing some good. And getting feedback from listeners and stuff, it's made it all worth it. I got to go to the NFB convention in July, and a lady from Maryland actually tracked me down in that huge conference room, like 2,000 people. She somehow managed to find me and was like, "Hey, just want to say I love your show." And I thought that was the coolest thing. Like, people are listening to this. You know, it was great. It was exciting. And it's thrilling for me to be able to do all this and to, you know, if I have one person come up and track me down, that makes it all worth it.
Yeah, because you're now famous, so, you know, that happens to famous people. And, you know, so, yeah. Because, see, what would have happened was, had I would have went to the convention, I would have been like that guy, you know, looking for you. You know, so, you know, you made at least close to the pinnacle of podcasts, pontificators. You know, you even have the same microphone. I'm going to go ahead and say it, the same one as Leo Laporte. So that's when you know you've made it.
That's the reason I got it. Like, I looked it up and I said, "Oh man, I need that." I didn't really need it, but you know, once I found out about it, it just sat in the back of my mind for 6 months, and it wouldn't stop bugging me. So finally, I just gave in, and I love it. It's great.
Yep. So you sound great. This interview has been great. We're going to go ahead and close it out. So tell our listeners how we can reach you. Give us one parting piece of advice, and then we'll say goodbye.
All right. So you can find everything with the podcast at htb2.com. Again, that's the number 2. You can find me actually kind of all over the place on Twitter at Mike Malarsie, Facebook.com/MMalarsie. My website, malarsie.com, actually I've launched a public speaking career, and that's kind of the hub of all things going on. And as far as parting words go, really it is, I wake up every day and I say, what am I going to do today? And at the end of every day, I say, you know, did I do anything? Did today end better than yesterday? I'm always constantly trying to improve in one way or another. And that's something that I would encourage everybody to try. Ask yourself at the end of every day, am I better than the day before? Look around you, because I guarantee you there are opportunities everywhere. And not just for yourself, but opportunities to help other people. And if you're struggling with something, I can promise you that one of the best ways to deal with your own issues, to help yourself out, is to help somebody else with their issues. It's amazing the effect that will have on you and your personal life. So get out, do some good, enjoy life, and just get involved. There's so much out there. Just go and do it.
Excellent. And so just to kind of sum up your words of wisdom there, basically, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll ultimately have what you want. Would you say that to be about
Absolutely. If you talk to people who are quote unquote successful, a lot of them will tell you that was partially because of their hard work, but a lot of people have things happen to them. This has been my experience. The more I tried to help others and just try to do my best in my life, the more opportunities came to me, the more, I guess, people noticed that I was trying to be successful and trying to do good and trying to help others. People notice that kind of stuff. People notice. And when they notice, good things can happen.
Yeah. I tell folks all the time, even in the workplace, and they're wondering why they don't have a job. And I said, excellence is noted and rewarded. If you're doing something excellent, you're smiling, you're doing excellent customer service, people will notice that and you'll be rewarded. Even if you have a bad boss, that doesn't mean you have to have an attitude.
Right.
Yeah. So excellent. All right, man. Well, we're going to go ahead and close this thing out. We're going to say goodbye. The Delivering Access Podcast Nation, it's 3 of us. I got to go ahead and sign off, and you have a great one, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
In my traditional closing, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you are right. Think pennies, get pennies. Think dollars, get dollars. See you on the other side.
This has been a Yuga Music Group production. Website 81x.com/Yuga/X. The Yuga Music Group can be reached at 678-608-8969. All rights reserved.